Hi everyone, welcome to the Polly Show. Today I'm here again, finally, after disappearing. And I wanted to say sorry for this, guys. I really wanted to start this channel in English for a very long time. And then in December, after I watched Rebel Moon, I decided that that would be the perfect subject for my first video. And then I did it, I published. But after posting the video, I basically disappeared because December was a very crazy month. I was very busy. So I didn't have time, to focus on my channel. And then now I'm coming back. And when I came back, I noticed that my Rebel Moon video has a lot of views. I think it has like 4,000 views and a lot of comments that I didn't have time to answer. And many of them, I think, doesn't even make sense to answer anymore because the movie is already released on Netflix. So I'm really sorry for this. But now in 2024, it's really my focus, to make this channel happen. So I'm gonna try to post more often and also to answer all of your comments. So today, in this video, I want to share with you guys my ranking for 2023. So my top 10 films of 2023. Obviously, I did not watch all the movies that were released in the year. So there are probably going to be some movies missing. But I did a list with all the movies that I watched. Let me see. In total, I watched 54 new releases in 2023. So it was a lot of movies. And I want to talk about it with you guys. Okay, so let's go to number 10. The 10th film on my list is Beau is Afraid by Ari Aster. And this movie was so amazing. I watched it in IMAX, it was like a pre-screening. And it was amazing, like the reaction of the people. I really like watching movies in theaters and not necessarily like just at home. Because I like the whole experience, of the environment, of everyone there is there, also reacting with the movie. So everyone was like gasping and people were gagged, people were like shocked. And when the movie ended, when the credits were rolling, a lot of people were talking in the movie theater and some of them like hated the movie and others loved the movie. I'm more like in the love side. That's why the movie is in my top 10 of 2023. I really like it. Beau is Afraid. This movie, it feels like a limited series into a movie because it's a very long movie. It's 3 hours. I love long movies. So in these 3 hours, we see Beau, the protagonist, he has like 3 different adventures. So in a way, it feels like we are watching 3 different episodes. And I love the first episode and the third episode, which are the best for me. The second one, I think, is a little bit boring, but it's like visually super interesting, especially because there is a moment that they mix Joaquin Phoenix, the actor who's the protagonist here, with some environments that are like 2D animation. So he's basically in an animated world. And I think this is really amazing. This happens in the second chapter of the story. But my favorite is the first and the third one. The third one, I cannot say very much what happens because it would be spoilers. But basically this movie has a lot to do with his relationship with his mother. And the chapter 3 is a lot about this. But the first one, I really liked, and I can talk about it because it's not spoilers. I really love it, how it basically show how it is to be anxious, to have an anxiety attack, a panic attack, and not be able to leave your own place, to leave your home, because sometimes I feel this, I always need to be going out to solve things, to do things, and it's not good to only be at home. But sometimes it can be difficult, to get out of the bed, get out of your house when you're feeling anxious, when you're feeling super bad. And I think the way that Ari Aster, he directed, the first adventure of Beau in this movie was amazing. I think the way that he depicted, anxiety was perfect. And I think this is a movie that everyone should watch, and also is a movie that I think is good not to know a lot about it before watching. It's good to be surprised. So if you didn't watch Beau is Afraid yet, please go watch it. So now let's talk about my number 9 spot, which is JAWAN. I hope this is the right way to pronounce this title. This is an Indian movie that I watched in theaters here in Canada. And I have to say, this is something really incredible about Canada, about Toronto, is that here in the movie theaters, you can see a lot. Now you can watch a lot of foreign movies, and this is something that I could not do in Brazil. It's really difficult to watch like Indian movies legally in Brazil, and also Chinese movies, Korean movies. We often see more like Hollywood movies or national movies, Brazilian movies in Brazil. But here in Canada, they have a lot of productions that come like from other countries, and I love this. I've been trying to watch as many as I can. I could not watch like all of them, but at any time that I see, something, it's already on my list to try to watch. And I love that even when I cannot watch it like in theaters, The movies here, they always go like to Amazon Prime Video and to Netflix. So they have a lot of Indian movies here in Canada. And I've been starting, to engage with Indian cinema and watch their movies, from Bollywood, Tollywood, Collywood, and all the industries within India, and I've been really loving these movies. And this one, JAWAN, was really, really incredible. It's a very like action-packed, epic story. And as many Bollywood films, it's gonna have a mix of like music and romance and comedy and action and drama. So it's a really like a big experience, and I really, really love this movie here. The star of the movie is Shahrukh Khan, who is like a big, big star in India. He is amazing. I'm starting to watch like more of his films. He's amazing in everything that he does. So like, it's an incredible film. As I said, it's a very long, it's like 3 hours. And I really like this because it feels like really epic. I really love long movies. And this movie here, basically we're gonna follow a guy, the protagonist, that is kind of a hero, but not a hero in the like superhero sense that we are used to now with a lot of like superhero movies in theaters. He's more like a revolutionary. And I love that a lot of his actions or things that he does, kind of like to attack politicians and make they think about what they're doing, and I think this movie is very political, it's very interesting, it's very smart, but at the same time, it's also very fun, because as I said, it has romance, it has dance, it has comedy, it has everything. It's an amazing, amazing experience. And I know that right now, this movie, I think it's available worldwide on Netflix, with an extended edition that is even longer. So if you didn't watch this movie in theaters, please go to Netflix right now to watch JAWAN, because this movie is really incredible. And now in the number 8 spot, we have NIMONA. NIMONA is an animated movie that was released on Netflix and that I really fell in love with it. It's just incredible. I know that it is based on a graphic novel, but I never read the graphic novel. And I know that the writer of the graphic novel is the same creator of the She-Ra reboot that we have also on Netflix, and I started watching She-Ra after watching Nimona because of how much I love Nimona. I didn't know a lot about like the She-Ra show before, but the things that like Nimona, it's an incredible fantasy story, with also some elements of science fiction. And these are two like types of stories that I love. I love science fiction, fantasy, and horror. This is like my big love of my life. So this movie has like fantasy and science fiction together in a very incredible way. It has an awesome like world building. A whole world is created here, a whole kingdom that is completely different with different rules and different like species and things that happen. And I think this is really incredible because I love, I'm always fascinated with the experience of getting to learn about new worlds, new universes that were created. So I was really like missing a story that would bring to me, a new place to be mesmerized by. And this is what Nimona gave me. And it's also a fantasy and sci-fi story that has a lot of like LGBT representation, because here we have a gay couple, but not just them. We also have like Nimona herself, the main character. She is kind of like I don't know, I mean, she is not explicitly trans, but I think that all her story is kind of a metaphor that you could see as someone being like non-binary, or someone being like beyond the idea of gender, or beyond the idea of what a person should be, So I think the story is really incredible. I know that the creator of Nimona is also non-binary, so I thought that this was amazing. If you love fantasy and if you are LGBT, I think Nimona is basically a movie that you need to watch. Like that, there's no like, oh, I don't know, like you need to watch right now. It's just incredible. I really fell in love, and that's why it's here in my top 10. And now let's talk about my movie number 7, which is also a movie that has like a mix of fantasy and sci-fi in a way, which is Poor Things. This is the new Emma Stone movie that is being like very controversial, and it's also like very erotic and very like hard R-rated, but I really, really like this movie. It is kind of like a Frankenstein, a feminist Frankenstein in a way, because basically we have here a woman and she died, and then a doctor, kind of like Frankenstein, he took her body and he tries to make her live again. But there is like a twist, to this resurrection that I'm not going to explain here. I want you guys to learn about this watching the movie, because it's a big deal, a big reveal in the movie. It's in the beginning of the movie, but still it's like very surprising. And she is going to basically start living again. So she has this adult body, but she is like a child in her mind, and she's growing up in this body and basically like living adventures all around the world, discovering things for the first time and becoming a woman, a real woman. So this is basically like a feminist, empowered, Frankenstein story. And I really, really like it. And also, just like Nimona, I think the protagonist has kind of like a trans metaphor that you could read in this story. It's not explicitly trans, but I think it is an interpretation that you could have of this story. And it's really interesting because basically like she kills an old version of herself, and then she's now living for the first time, again as a woman in the world and discovering things for the first time. So I think this is an interesting like trans metaphor that you could do with this story. So LGBT people probably are gonna really enjoy this movie. And as a fantasy and sci-fi fan, I really like how the world is created here in this movie. So we have science elements because of the way that she's brought back to life, just like Frankenstein vibes. But it's not a fantasy in a way that we're gonna see like magic and superpowers. It's not like this. I think the fantasy is more how this world is portrayed on screen, because the visual, they're very like oniric, very like dreamlike, so there is something that doesn't look real, doesn't feel real, but the emotion is real, the meaning is real, but the visual, everything is very like stylish and crazy, and the costumes and the production design, everything is super like surrealist, and I really, really like it. I think it's a beautiful movie. Visually, it's one of like my favorites of the year. That's one of the reasons why it's here in my top 10. And it's basically a movie that I think everyone should watch. If you like this kind of stories that deal a little bit, with science fiction, and that has a very like interesting visuals. They are not just like basic realism, it tries to be like more different, more exotic. I think you're gonna like this. And also, if you like feminist stories, empowerment stories, and also stories that talk about like sex and sexuality in a very mature way, that is not just like, I don't know, it's not here to shock you, because some people, they think that this movie is very erotic to shock you, but it's not. I think it's a lot about a woman's relationship, not just with the world, but with herself and with her body. So it is very mature, it is beautiful, it is poetic, and I think that everyone should watch Poor Things. Now on number 6, we have another movie that is visually incredible and insane, which is Wonka. This is the new Paul King movie. I don't know a lot of like Paul King's work. I know that he also did the Paddingtons movies that I never watched before, but I love the whole franchise of Wonka, So I remember when I was a child, my mom, she showed me the movie of her childhood, which was the 70s version of Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. And then when I was a kid, because I was a kid in the 2000s, so we had the Tim Burton movie, I think it was 2005 that was released in theaters. And I remember going to the theaters to watch it with my father, and I love that movie as well. So I love both versions of the Chocolate Factory movie. And I also read the book before, like many years ago, I also read the book. I wanted to reread the book before watching this movie, but I couldn't. I didn't have time. But I remember that I really liked the book as well. And so I was very excited to watch Wonka. I was really, really like full of excitement for this movie. And to make it even better, here in Canada, I met a friend that she is obsessed, with movies just like me. And she loves the universe of Wonka, and also the books and the movies and everything. So she was very excited to watch, and I watched this movie with her. And the movie itself is really good, but I have to say that the experience of watching with her specifically, I think made it even better, because I know that she's a fan just like me. So we were very excited. We were talking a lot about it. And Wonka is basically like amazing. One thing that I always thought about Willy Wonka since I was a kid was that I always kind of saw myself in him. When I watched the Chocolate Factory movies, I didn't see myself in the children, they were visiting the factory. I always saw myself in Willy Wonka, because I loved the way that he was very creative, that he had, this passion for the chocolate, and that he was doing crazy stuff and everything. And I always wanted to be like that. I always wanted to create something that would make people feel passionate. That's what I wanted. So I always felt myself a lot connected to Willy Wonka. And he's a character that is very mysterious, so we don't know a lot about his past. And in the Tim Burton version, they kind of have a backstory for the character, which I think is very amazing. You know, I really liked the backstory in that movie, but here, this movie is like a prequel, so you're gonna have like his real backstory in it's like a different type of story. It's a different view of this story, so it's not the same as the book, it's not the same as the 70s movies, and it's not the same as the Tim Burton movie. You know, it's a new version of Wonka, new version of this universe, and I really like the story that they tell here. It's really beautiful and emotional. I really like, you know, his relationship with his mom, and you know, his relationship to the characters that we meet here. He has a lot of friends that are gonna help him to basically like build, you know, his brand, you know, as a chocolate maker. And I think it's a very beautiful movie. It's very touching. It has a lot of beautiful messages, and visually is incredible. You know, it's very colorful and vibrant. I love the production design. You know, everything is beautiful. You know, like the town, the first store that he creates is just so beautiful, and all the costumes and the Oompa Loompa, I love it. I mean, everything is beautiful in this movie, and also it's a musical, and I really like musicals, and I love the music here. I love all of their voices, I love the lyrics, I love, you know, the melodies. It's all like really interesting and beautiful. It is incredible, like really, it's really fun, really cute, really emotional. I think everyone should watch Wonka. You know, if you didn't watch it yet, please go watch Wonka. I'm sure you're gonna love it. And now let's go to movie number 5, which is Godzilla minus one. I have to tell you guys, you know, I have to admit that I'm more Team Kong, you know. So when I was a kid, I remember that I loved King Kong. You know, I think my mom also showed me the movie of her time. I don't remember if it was the 70s or the 80s, but we had like a King Kong movie at the time. So she showed me that movie when I was a kid, and I love it. And then, as I said, I'm a 2000s kid, so I watched the remake for the remake. I think it was directed by Peter Jackson, you know, the same guy who directed the Lord of the Rings movies. He is amazing, and I was obsessed with the movie, which is also a very long movie if you think about it. No, the Peter Jackson's King Kong is 3 hours. So my love for long movies come like since I was a child. And I really loved Kong. I watched like all the versions of Kong's story, of Kong movies, you know, and sequels and everything. I love King Kong. But I never had this relationship to Godzilla. You know, I remember that I had only watched, you know, the American Godzilla movies and the ones that lead to his crossover with King Kong. So I think it's the 2014 Godzilla, and then the second movie I think is King of Monsters, and then Godzilla versus King Kong. These are the only movies that I knew before, but now this year, you know, 2023, I decided to watch the original Godzilla, and I love it. It's really good. The movie from, I think it's 1954. It's really good. I have never seen before. I know, I mean, that's stupid. I should have watched it before. But since I was more like Team Kong, I have to say that I was kind of like, you know what, I'm not gonna watch Godzilla. But now I see that I was being stupid. I should watch like both. Because both know the classic King Kong from the 30s, you know, 1930s is amazing. And the original Godzilla from the 50s is amazing. You know, it's really good. And after watching that classic movie, I was like, you know what, I should watch more Godzilla. So when this movie was in theaters and I was seeing that a lot of people were saying so many good things, you know, this movie was getting so many good reviews, I said like, you know what, I need to watch this in theaters. And I have to say, it was amazing. This movie is really great, you know, especially because it's very dramatic, and I really like drama. I like melodrama, you know, I like family drama and romance and this kind of stuff. But as I said, I really love horror and science fiction and fantasy, and I love movies that make it all mixed together, you know. And this movie is kind of a mix of all of that, because obviously it deals with science fiction, you know, it's Godzilla, and also deals with horror because he's destroying the town, people are dying. So it's, you know, terrifying. But it also has here, you know, a story of characters that is very dramatic, and they are trying to survive. And we also see all the trauma from the war and how this kind of changes their perspective of life and of everything that is happening. And I think it's just a beautiful movie. It's emotionally beautiful. It's not just visually beautiful, but it's emotionally beautiful. It's touching. It's incredible. And I think that many times when you think about like Godzilla and King Kong, a lot of people think it's just movies about big monsters fighting. And I know that this is also an element of both franchises, so I don't think this is something that we can just like deny. But there's also so much more to these stories, you know, there's so much more emotion, so much more feeling. And I think that Godzilla minus one is a perfect example of that. You know, it's a perfect example of how touching a sci-fi fantasy story can be. And this is the type of story that I like, you know, that I fall in love with. So Godzilla Minus One was incredible, and I think everyone should watch this movie. And now it's time for number 4, which is Past Lives. You know, this is a movie directed by Celine Song, and it's basically the story of like a boy and a girl that they fell in love when they were kids, and they were like from South Korea. But the girl, you know, her family decides to move to the United States. I mean, first they go to Canada, and later when she's like older, she goes to the United States. She wants to live in New York. So basically like they are immigrants. And the boy, he stays in Korea. But with time, they ended up like talking again with each other. You know, they find each other in social media. So they start like sending messages and calling each other, and, you know, doing like video calls, and they start having this feeling again from this childhood. But the movie's gonna deal with the fact that now they are in complete like opposite parts of the world, and they change a lot because they were kids, now they're adults. And especially her, because like she changed her name and she's now living in a place that the culture is different, while he stays, you know, the same as before in a way, you know. So he has the same traditions from her hometown, but she now is different. She's more like American girl and this kind of thing. And it's so interesting to see here in the movie how they really love each other. But it seems like all the situation, all the context makes it impossible for them to actually be together. And the movie is just like all about this struggle, you know, this emotional struggle. I'm not gonna say if in the end they are together or not, but what I can say is that the whole journey is very intense and very emotional. This movie is very beautiful, very sentimental, and it really touches your heart. And I think that one thing that made this movie, you know, resonate with me so much is exactly, you know, the immigrant aspect of the story. Because as I said, it's not just like a boy from her childhood that she fell in love with, but a boy from her country, from her culture, you know. And now she's like in a totally different place. She's speaking another language, you know. She's kind of disconnected with her past in a way, and he represents everything, you know, her old home, you know, the legacy of her family, like it's all there, you know. And it's really intense because it's not just like the romance itself is amazing, you know, it's incredible, but the fact that it has this immigrant aspect made the movie resonate even more with me, you know. It's really beautiful, and I hope this movie wins an Oscar. You know, this movie needs to be like, it deserves a lot of nominations and everything, because it's really amazing. It's a beautiful movie, really well directed, well scripted. The acting is amazing. It's like super beautiful, super emotional. I love it. And now for number 3, we have a movie that I really am not sure how to say the title. I think it's Rocky or Rani Ki PREM KAHAANI. I think that's how it's pronounced. This is also an Indian movie, a Bollywood movie. That is basically Rocky and Rani's love story. I think that's the translation of the title. And it's an amazing romance movie. But it's like the opposite of Past Lives, because Past Lives, as I said, is a lot about like struggles, and it's really intense. Like sometimes you want to cry of sadness because of how hard all the context is and how difficult it is for them to be together. But here, this movie is more fun. It's more like a musical with comedy, and it also has a lot of drama, but it's more like an uplifting movie, you know. It's also colorful and vibrant, and it's just amazing, you know. So here, I don't want to say like too many spoilers of this film, but we have Rocky and Rani, and Rocky, he has like a grandfather that has Alzheimer, but there is a woman from his past that he keeps remembering. And then Rocky, he's very connected with his grandfather, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna find this woman from his past because I think this is gonna be good for his memories, you know. And then he starts like chasing for this woman, and this woman, she is Rani's grandmother. So, you know, Rocky and Rani, they meet, and all their relationship start because they are trying to put their grandparents together again. And this is so cute. This is like really cute. But the thing is, after they bring, you know, their grandparents together, they start falling in love with each other. and it's like amazing. It's really, really beautiful. And all of this, it's a journey full of, as I said, music, dance, colors. It's like amazing. It's epic. It's really, really beautiful. But one thing that I like about this movie, and that I'm enjoying a lot about Indian movies in general that I'm watching, is that all of their films are kind of like epics, you know? So this movie here is 3 hours long, you know? So it's a really big runtime for a romance movie. Usually romance is like 1 hour and a half or like 2 hours, and this is 3. So what happens here? Why is it so long? It's basically because the movie, it starts as a simple romance, but as it grows, you know, as the relationship grows, as the sentiment grows, the story starts to become more of a family drama. Because, you know, Rocky and Rani, they are very different, and their families have very like different views of the world, you know. Like Rani's family is more progressive, Rocky's family is more traditional, you know. So there's a lot of things that they don't think the same, you know. Their families don't think the same. So to be able to be together, they need to make, you know, their families understand each other. So basically they need to make like everyone understand each other. And I think this is a word that kind of describes this film, which is understanding and also empathy, you know. So it's a movie about empathy, and it's more about like the family than just the couple. And I think that this makes the romance even stronger. It's really an amazing movie. It's available on Prime Video. I watched it in theaters. Thank God. I love to be able to watch foreign movies here in Canada, you know, in theaters. But if you couldn't watch in theaters, I think you really, really need to check it out on Amazon Prime Video. And the second movie in my top 10 is Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. And this movie, I mean, you guys already know that I love this movie because I already made a video about it. It was my first video here in my channel. And basically, I'm a cultist, you know. I'm a big Zack Snyder fan, and I love this movie. Basically, that's it. I love this movie. I think this movie is incredible. Visually, it's very interesting, as always with Zack Snyder. I think this movie is one of the best, like visually, together with Beau is Afraid and Poor Things, you know, this movie, and also the one that is on #1 spot. I think they're visually the best of the year. And I really love the story, you know. It's basically like very classic fantasy and sci-fi story. Some people would say that it is like very cliche, but I disagree. I think that Zack Snyder, he doesn't repeat what other people do. He kind of celebrates the legacy of fantasy and science fiction. And I think this is very different, you know. It's different to repeat something because it's just like you're just being lazy, you know. It's not what he does here. What I see in this movie is that he loves sci-fi. He loves fantasy, just like I do. So he's basically creating his own world, but putting here like all the elements that makes fantasy and science fiction so incredible, you know. So I think this is a celebration of this kind of story. And also I think it's a celebration of like the origin of the stories. I think there is some elements of like fairy tales and legends and fables and even like pulp magazines here in this movie. And I think this is incredible because these are also stuff that inspires me a lot. So I think that Zack Snyder and I, we have a lot of like the same inspirations in a way. And I love to see all of these elements through his eyes because he is a visionary, you know. So he has a different way to show this, not just visually, but also in the story that he's telling us, you know, the story that he's creating. So it's very like Zack Snyder-y, you know, the movie. And I really like this. I really like this movie. I think it's amazing. The only reason that this movie is not in my #1 spot is because I'm really like not happy with the pacing. The movie is very fast, you know, and I know that this is gonna be solved in the R-rated cut that we are gonna have this year now, 2024. We're gonna have extended cuts of both Part 1 and Part 2. But talking about like A Child of Fire, in this PG-13 cut, this family-friendly version, I really like it, you know. And I think this movie by itself, without the extended cut, is already, you know, the second movie in my top 10. So I thought it was really, really good. I really love the story. I really love the characters. Right now, I'm reading the book, you know, the novel. And I'm loving even more because the book has like more details that we're gonna see in the extended cut. But as I said, this version here, to me, it's already amazing. I really, really fell in love with the story. And I think it's just like so incredible to be able, to get into a new world, a new mythology, and a new history to learn, new planets, new characters, new everything. I love this. It's just like so amazing because for a very long time, we especially like we who like film, because if you love books, I mean, I love books, but when you read books, it's easier to have like newer stuff coming, new things coming, because there's always like new books being written. But with movies, especially sci-fi and fantasy, they need a lot of money, for the budget. And because of this, Hollywood usually they don't invest on original ideas. So we are all the time only seeing like spin-offs and sequels. So for years and years, if you loved sci-fi, and fantasy, basically all we had was Marvel movies and DC movies and Star Wars movies. Only this. But now, Rebel Moon represents a new story, a new universe, a new everything. And I love this. I think every fantasy and sci-fi fan should give Rebel Moon a chance. I think it doesn't make sense, to ignore this movie. I know that a lot of people are ignoring or just hating on this movie because of Zack Snyder. These people are pathetic, obviously. But I think that if you're not pathetic and you didn't watch Rebel Moon yet, you should watch Rebel Moon right now, because I'm sure you're gonna love it. And now it's time to talk about my number one spot, which is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I really, really loved this film. I mean, obvious is my number one in my top 10. But the things that like, I'm a big fan of Spider-Man, and when I say Spider-Man, I mean, the Spider-Man comics, the web of comics, let's put it like that. So it's not just like the main Spider-Man, Peter Parker, but also all the other characters like Miles Morales, his friends, other heroes, other things that are involved in the Spider-Man universe inside the Marvel universe. Because even though, it's Marvel, the big brand, and we have a lot of stories inside of this brand, I feel that like we have different pockets inside of Marvel, So Spider-Man, in the comics, it feels a lot like its own thing, even though it's inside the Marvel universe. The same thing we can say about like the X-Men. The X-Men, they feel like they own their own pocket universe inside the Marvel universe, and I really like that. I really like Spider-Man stories in general. And this Spider-Verse trilogy of animated movies is basically an epic exploration of Spider-Man stories and Spider-Man versions and variants and everything. So I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I think Miles Morales is an amazing character. It's really iconic. It's really interesting. And I also love, the representation that he brings, to the table with his presence here. I also love how Spider-Man is more of like a title and not one person. So I love that this movie and also the other movie, they are very respectful of Peter Parker, because we all love Peter Parker. But at the same time, it shows that the symbol of the spider is bigger than just him, So I love here Miles, I love Gwen, I love the other characters. I think it's amazing. I love the world building that they do here, in this movie, is the first one, and now in the sequel. I really like how this movie different to of Rebel Moon, because Rebel Moon, as I said, feels very fast-paced. One thing that I really like about Across the Spider-Verse is that this film has an amazing pacing. The movie is very slow, a lot of things happen. The movie is also very long. It's not 3 hours, but it's like 2 hours and a half basically. And this is not something usual for animated movies, especially like Hollywood animated movies, because if you're talking about anime, Japanese animated movies, basically they take animation more seriously. And also they do like animation for adults more often. So basically we have like a longer runtime. But in Hollywood, this is still something that people are kind of learning about right now, that animation is not just for children. Obviously there are people who already know, but I talk about like Hollywood as a business. And for a very long time, they only saw like animated movies as something for children. So it needed to be like very fast. It needed to be like very cute, and also like with a lot of comedy and very like light, and cute and fun and very childlike. And I feel that now, especially because of the Spider-Verse movies, Hollywood is starting to notice that animation is for everyone. Animation is a type, a media for movies, and not, a genre of movies, So you can do everything with animation, and I think that Across the Spider-Verse is proof of that. you know. And I also like that this movie is the middle chapter of a trilogy, and usually I love middle chapters of trilogies. You know, if you talk about Back to the Future, part 2 is my favorite. If we talk about like Matrix, Matrix Reloaded is my favorite Matrix. So I really love second chapters of trilogy, because usually it's the chapter of the trilogy that we're gonna see all the characters that we met in the first movie, and they are growing, so they are evolving, and this is very interesting to see. But there's also something really big, you know, a struggle, a conflict that they are not able to just like deal with it on chapter 2. So we're gonna need to watch chapter 3. And I know that a lot of people, they don't enjoy this kind of cliffhanger, but I love it. I mean, it's the same with like Pirates of the Caribbean, you know, that we have Dead Man's Chest, and then at the world's end, you know, it's the same thing of movie 2 and movie 3. You know, the chapter 2 is always my favorite, and I love the cliffhanger, and I love the way that it ends, and we're like, oh my god, I need the next chapter right now. It's only sad that we don't know when the chapter 3 is going to be released, especially because we had, you know, the strikes and everything. So everything was like stopped in Hollywood for a very long time. We don't know when we're gonna have the third movie. But one thing I'm sure of, this is already one of the best trilogies ever, you know, in the history of cinema. I really love this film. And basically, that's it, guys. This was my top 10 of 2023. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was like interesting. And I plan to come back here to my channel again sooner than before. You know, I'm not gonna be like a whole month disappearing here. I hope that next week, or maybe the week after that, I'm back here to make like more videos, talk to you guys about pop culture, and especially fantasy, sci-fi, and horror, because these are the things that I love the most. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this movie. I hope you enjoyed this video, and also you enjoy all these movies in the list in case you didn't watch yet. But that's it. I'm gonna leave you guys here. Bye.